friends, it's Paul Ward, and welcome to another On the Road. Well, you've probably been to the local county fair or maybe the petting zoo where you've seen the mini horses, but you don't know much about them. Well, our next guest has found a way to introduce these wonderful creatures to many more people. She's the co-creator of Romeo Roadshow, Sanaa Pharayra. Welcome to On the Road.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Pathways Escrow and 4RW Media Productions. So Sanaa, where are we?
We're at Mike Edrick Stables in Agora Hills, California.
Tell us, how did you get into working with mini horses?
By accident, actually. Several years ago, I started working with Daryl Hannah with her horses. And she had a horse an older horse that she wanted me to find a companion for, because horses are herd animals and they're very social and, they like to be with each other. Mm-hmm. So she asked me to find a horse that we could adopt or rescue that could be this other horse's friend. So I had been looking for a horse, that was going to retire, needed to retire or something like that we could adopt. And, around that time, a friend of mine who's also in the horse business had ended up fostering a couple miniature horses inadvertently when his neighbor passed away. And she had 2 miniature horses in her backyard. And when she passed away, the children had come to him and asked him to find them homes. So anyway, these 2 miniature horses showed up at his stable one day. And sadly, one of them became very sick and had to be put down. So this one little white miniature horse was all by itself. It was really sad. And I just, kind of showed up right around that time. And I asked Daryl, I said, hey, would you consider getting a miniature horse instead of a full-size horse? And she wasn't sure at first, but I just told her, I think it would be really fun for you. It's just different. You can do different stuff with them because they're so small.
Right.
And I said, no, he hasn't really been handled much. And he needs some work, but he does have these really cute eyes and a really pretty little head. And I think he would look great if we got him and we fixed him up and worked with him. So she agreed, and that's how we got Romeo initially.
It was his name Romeo, or
his name was Romeo.
Yes, Romeo.
Yeah. So we built a little miniature horse-sized stall for Romeo with everything at the right height for him. We measured everything so he'd be comfortable and safe at night and stuff like that. And we brought him home within 1 week of being at home and Daryl meeting him and spending time with him. She was completely in love with him. She's like, he's magical, and she was inviting friends and family over to meet him. And by that time, he was already getting more comfortable with people because we'd been handling him. We had worked with him a couple of months prior to moving him home. Mm-hmm. And she was like, Sanaa, I just think he's amazing and we need to share him with people. And she said that within the first week. So it's really interesting to go back and tell the story because it very much unfolded on its own, organically. Neither of us had any intention in the beginning that we'd be doing therapy work.
Right.
So we got Romeo. I started working with him. I had a little training schedule with him, just like the big horses, and I do different things with him. And he really learned very quickly, which was interesting because he was by the time we got him, he was an older horse.
Right.
And he hadn't had any training.
And he was just sitting in the pasture. He was kind of doing nothing.
Yeah, really hadn't been handled much. I mean, borderline feral. It was hard for them to catch the 2 horses, to put them in the trailer, to bring them here to foster them, because they weren't used to people. So he really came around and we started getting him in shape and, grooming him. And he was really looking more and more unicorn-like as time went on. And Daryl then said, I think we should build a van for him so we can take him anywhere. And we had looked around to see if there was anything available in the market for miniature horses, and there really wasn't. Mm-hmm. So she went out, did her own research, found us a little van that was the right size, because our concept was that we wanted to be able to take him anywhere a car could go. Parking garage, parallel park, we wanted it to be really easy to drive. So she ended up finding this little van. And it probably was like a florist delivery van or something like that before we got it. So it had, just the 2 front seats. The back was empty.
And would he get in from the side, or would he like?
So I'm going to explain what happened next. So we get the van, and I hired a guy that works on horse trailers, that repairs horse trailers, knows how to weld. And we worked with him to basically build a prototype for a horse van. And we built a compartment, I call it the box, the horse box, that went fit inside the van and bolted to the frame of the van. And it basically is like the inside of a horse trailer, but it's sized correctly for miniature horses.
Right.
And it has padding on the sides. It has, rubber mats so we can put bedding in there for them. And then we designed a ramp that could be stored under the box and then pulled out. And we went through a couple different renditions. It took a little bit to get the ramp so it was super functional. So we worked on that for a while. And around the time that we were about to finish it to where we could use it, Daryl decided that we were going to call the venture Romeo Roadshow. And she drew a little logo, and we had it put on the side of the van. And again, it wasn't like there was no plan ahead of time. It was just like, we're going to share them with people.
Right.
It was very just open.
But you didn't know who you were going to share them with. It was just like this open concept.
I did know, though, that if we took them out in public, people were going to love them. Yes. I knew that. So we get the van finished, and we start taking him places just to get him used to going places, because he hadn't ever been, transported a lot. So we take him to the beach, a couple times. We take him to some shopping centers. We just start taking him on little quote unquote field trips.
Right.
And he took to it really well. It wasn't hard to get him used to it. And sure enough, everywhere we went, people would come over, and it was very cute to watch, how people were just like, wow, he's so little and he's so cute. And he was so friendly that and most of these people were not horse people. They're just regular people that were out, in these public places we were going to. And they were all super touched. And literally, it was so funny, because I remember on several occasions people coming up to us and petting him and asking questions and then saying, he's magical, which is exactly what Daryl had said, initially. Right. So we were like, oh my gosh, other people think he's magical too, So so that was like the very beginning. And then Daryl's sister has a camp called the Painted Turtle. It's out in Lake Hughes, and it's a camp for critically ill children so that they can have a summer camp experience. It's a really amazing charity. And they were having a holiday party, and they invited us to bring Romeo to the holiday party. So we go out there and take Romeo to the holiday party, and it was, massive hit. There are kids everywhere, and he was so good with the kids. And at one point, I looked at Romeo, and you could barely see any of his little white body, because there's like all these little hands all over him. Like he was getting pet from every angle.
And he was cooperating.
So just so gentle, like absorbing the love from the kids, giving them love in return. And there were some kids that were in little wheelchairs, and he was like the perfect height to just put his head in their lap, and they were petting him, and they were just like giggling. And
that's awesome.
And it was really amazing. And I knew when I saw that, I was like, one's not going to be enough. We're going to need another one. And thankfully, I kind of had a feeling when we built the van, we should make it big enough for 2. So we had room in the van for another horse. So I, just put some ads out in the horse community, and just, told people I'm looking to adopt a miniature horse. I want to do therapy work with it. So I would love to, if anyone has one that they wouldn't mind, letting us adopt, that'd be great.
Right.
And that's how we ended up getting Ziggy, Romeo's friend. So we got Ziggy, and then, Daryl was like, we need to work with seniors too. Let's find a place where we can go, work with seniors. So I, through some friends, got connected with Senior Concerns in Thousand Oaks, which is a really amazing organization that does all kinds of services for seniors. And one of the programs they have is an adult day care program, which a lot of the participants have memory care issues that attend it. So that was my first place that we did, visited the seniors, and we had Ziggy by then. So we went, and there's probably like 20, 25 people, and they have a really nice courtyard there. So we had everyone seated, and we go and we'd like walk them around, the loop of chairs and spend a little time with each person and let them pet the horse and answer questions. And it was really incredible. And as a result, and then I started just going every month. So I've been doing it for quite a while now.
To the same facility.
To the same facility. And that's been really amazing because I've gotten to know a lot of the people, the participants, and the staff. And I've made so many friends and connections throughout this process. It's really, that's another thing that's been really incredible. And I remember when I first went to Senior Concerns, there were a few people that were very nervous of the horses. Like they didn't even want to touch them. They were scared. And there were definitely some people that also grew up with horses that were super comfortable and stuff like that. But and again, like I said, a lot of these people have like dementia and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I, with my background as a trainer and a riding instructor, I've worked with a lot of people and dealt with like fear issues and stuff. So I would just bring the horse in front of the person, not make anybody pet them or anything, but just let them kind of hang out in the horse's presence. And then they could ask me questions if they wanted to. And if they didn't, we would just hang out with them for a little bit.
Sure.
And just kind of vibe with them and move on. And what's fascinating is all of the people that were scared in the beginning are not scared at all anymore. In fact, there's one lady I really distinctly remember how scared she was. And she's one of the most confident people interacting with the horses now, even though they don't necessarily remember us.
Interesting. Because of the dementia.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But there's improvement in them.
Interesting.
And it's very clear to me that they have gained confidence from the experiences and from me going consistently. So that was really remarkable for me to see that, because most of my background with horses have just been working with people that want to ride and feed and things like that.
So they're coming to you because they want to.
Right.
As opposed to showing up and, here's something that's out of the ordinary and a unique opportunity.
Right.
But not something that they were calling for.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And horses are, you're making horses more accessible, right? Because it's easy you can't take a full-size horse into a senior daycare center or, to schools. I mean, it's just not practical.
Like a huge part of the story, I think, is the accessibility issue. And it's so funny because I don't think I would have ever come up with this idea just on my own. Mm-hmm. It just sort of naturally happened. And it came at a time in my life where I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to do something with horses, but something that I felt was a little bit more meaningful and impactful. Mm-hmm. And it's now that I'm doing it, I'm realizing this is like perfect, because they're exactly like big horses, but they're small. And they can be transported in a little van, and we can take them into urban areas. They can go inside buildings. And it allows people that wouldn't normally get to be around horses to get to have an experience with a horse.
Right. And it's probably surprising. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are of how many people have never interacted with the horse. I mean, it's probably a pretty big number.
Well, especially I think nowadays and moving forward into the future, less and less people have had experiences with horses, as we modernize more and more people live in urban areas. And, we did visit an American Red Cross shelter in Pasadena for the Eaton fire victims and with the horses. And there was a woman that came up to us who was probably in her mid 60s, and she saw the horses and she started crying. And she came over to us and she said, "I've never seen a real horse up close in my life."
Wow.
And she was
really,
it was amazing. And she's probably someone who's lived in the city her whole life,
right.
And I think back in the day, a lot of people would have, a family member, a grandparents, aunts or uncles that had a farm and get to, have had some experience around farm animals, horses.
Sure.
But now it's not as common as it used to be. Mm-hmm. And they're really amazing animals. And that's been incredible too, to get to introduce them to people that wouldn't, like I said, haven't gotten to be around them.
Right. The temperament of a mini horse, is it the same as a big horse?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
So just a little less intimidating because it's
The
small.
size, yeah. And I think that there is a little bit of a stigma that exists with ponies and miniature horses, of them being naughty. Like, people say that. From my perspective, I don't think that that is necessarily true. I think what tends to happen, particularly with miniature horses, is you see a lot of them being what I would call a pasture pet. You know, people get them because they're cute,
Right.
and they have them, but they're just sort of out on the periphery. You know,
Right.
they're not necessarily in the program with the big horses, you know,
They're kind of forgotten.
yeah, or like, oh, they're cute, they're over there, we'll play with them once in a while, you know, kind of
Right.
that kind of a thing. And so they don't get, you know, they don't necessarily get all the training and all the handling, you know, necessarily. I mean, not saying everyone is that way, but I think that happens a lot, especially with miniature horses.
Right.
And what I found with, I mean, Romeo was the first miniature horse I ever really tried to train. But what I found is he was exactly like a big horse. And just by having a regular program and being consistent, there was, you know, no difference at all.
Right.
Like, he took to it really well. And so I don't think that they are different. They're just smaller.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned magical, Romeo being magical, and some of the folks that experienced him said he was magical.
Yeah.
Is Ziggy magical too? Is this kind of a
Ziggy's definitely magical too, and in his own way. Ziggy's a funny little character, and they have very different personalities. We always describe Romeo as very proper and very prince-like, and Ziggy was a little more of rebellious, and had more of just a wily personality. You know, he's the one that you have to be careful because he might find a way to unlatch his gate or something like that. And
right.
so he kind of likes to do his own thing. He's a little independent. But what's so funny about Ziggy is he was very plug and play. Like, almost immediately I started doing the therapy visits with Ziggy. And he's so chill when we take him places. He's almost like a different horse. We call it zen. Like, he gets very zen.
Interesting.
Even in the van, he just sleeps in the van the whole time he's in the van. And when we go visit people, he just relaxes and chills out and really mellows out. And that's just kind of his style. I think it's relaxing for him. So they do have their own little personalities, but yeah, definitely Ziggy has just as much magic, I would say,
Sure.
to share with people.
Is anybody else that you know of doing mini horse therapy, or is this kind of a new thing that
You know,
guys
there
started?
are people that are doing it. It's out there. I think that it's interesting because after venturing into this, I've learned, that there even have been some people that have trained miniature horses as seeing eye, service animals.
Right.
So I think we've known that we can train them to do a lot of this stuff for a while. In my opinion, the reason maybe it's not as mainstream is that I do feel like, going back to the accessibility thing, that is an obstacle. I think a lot of people still have to use a horse trailer and truck to transport their miniature horses.
Right.
And it's very difficult, to go to a hospital and park in a, parking garage or something with a truck and trailer.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of an accessibility issue there. I fully think it's going to grow in the future, though. I definitely could see that happening. There's a ton of people that have even reached out to me and said they would love to join us, or they want to do it too. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt, one thing I've learned through meeting a lot of different organizations and working with different types of vulnerable populations is there's a massive amount of need for programs like this.
Interesting. So the Romeo Roadshow could expand, could grow.
It could expand. There could be other ones. I mean, we currently only have 2 horses, so there's only so much we could do. But
Sure.
there's so many people that want to have visits and stuff like that. So many people that need to be visited. You could have a whole army of little therapy horses easily, and they'd be working a lot.
Yeah. And so for your journey, your background, if you were a well-known equestrian award winner and trainer of many riders yourself, and so this is kind of a new journey, a new direction.
Yes, it's definitely a new chapter that was unexpected but came at a perfect time for me.
And your background was in hunter jumper, or
the majority of my background has been more in like equestrian sports and the English riding, jumping, stuff like that. Although I have done, cross disciplines, and done some other kinds of horse businesses and run large programs where horses, are, with the public, with the general public and stuff like that. So, yeah, but like I said, I had known for a while that I wanted to do something different, and I was brainstorming on what that could be because I knew I still wanted to do stuff with horses. But one of the reasons I wanted to make a change is I have seen over the years that horses are not accessible to most people. And it just was something that over time, it just wasn't resonating for me very well anymore.
Right.
Because I think that's sad. I was very fortunate to have been able to grow up riding horses. And I think if I had been born in a different era, and if I was a child growing up now, I may not have been able to, because it's just becoming more and more expensive and less accessible. And it was such a huge part of my life, and I can't imagine if not having that.
Right.
So I wanted to do something where I could somehow bring horses to people. I just didn't know how to do it and how to fund it and all that stuff. So it's really ironic, that how Romeo showed up. And and then as the more I did it, the more I was like, I love this. This is amazing.
And I would imagine it's just so rewarding. You're making horses accessible to people that have never seen them, and then you're working with seniors who have dementia, but they're having an experience that they would normally not have.
That is impactful.
Right.
That is improving them.
Right.
I mean, to gain confidence like that is really remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think the appreciation too from the people that we visit, like it reminds me and all of us that are doing this of how special this is and how lucky we are to get to do this.
Right.
And I think sometimes when you do something like this for an occupation, you get a little numb to that.
Sure.
You're at it all the time, and you forget like how lucky you are. And also to be in an environment like this. Like, this is amazing. I mean, I get to spend my days outside in beautiful places working with horses, and a lot of other people are in a building in front of a computer or something. And it's been really great, and I definitely want to continue expanding upon it. And it so far has continued to just keep amazing me, what's come out of it.
Yeah. And it can't be cheap to keep horses and transport them and visit these, centers and schools and nonprofits.
Right.
How is the program funded?
As of right now, it's just being sponsored.
Sure.
But there are ways that you can fund programs like this, other ways. And that might be something that we do in the future. Fortunately, as of right now, we haven't had to. But, I do think that there are ways that people can fund, nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. And that also requires a lot of work and connections and stuff like that. But I actually do think it is possible. So we don't, charge any of the places we visit that are charities.
Right.
We just do it as strictly a philanthropic thing.
Labor of love.
Yeah, just to help out, because they're already underfunded
Right.
anyway, and they don't have the budgets to pay for something like that.
Right.
But I have had a lot of people reach out that are for-profit businesses, like assisted living places and things like that really want us to come do things at their place. So we decided that because I don't want to say no to people. Sure. There's people there that could benefit from it. So recently we just decided, well, maybe we can help do some fundraising for other charities if we do this. So I just started asking them, hey, would you guys make a donation to our local Meals on Wheels program? And if you would be willing to do that, we'll donate a Romeo Roadshow to you, And I've actually found that everyone's been really excited about that. And so we have started raising some money. And another thing that happened is because we've been working with these senior programs, we've been learning about the challenges that they're facing. And a lot of them have, lost about 20% of their funding with a lot of the cutbacks that are going on. And a lot of these, particularly I know with the Meals on Wheels type programs, sometimes they're called other things like senior nutrition program, a lot of these people rely on that, and they can't leave their house and they can't go grocery shopping. And that might be that one meal might be the food they eat for that entire day. Right. And you start learning more about all of these different issues facing people, and then you just want to help them. And I actually, in the future, would like to see if there's any larger companies that might even want us to come visit with Romeo and Ziggy to just cheer up their employees. Sure. And maybe would jump on board with helping, donate some money to these organizations. Right. And
some of those cubicle workers have not,
we can all benefit from.
That's right.
We really can all benefit from it. We call it, it's funny that it's called therapy, because it's sort of what I feel like horse people have always known, which is that horses are good for us,
Right.
But everyone can benefit from it.
What do the next 3 months look like for the Romeo Roadshow?
We're really busy. We have a lot of visits scheduled. And like I said, we have some fundraising visits with some places that have, generously agreed to make some donations to Meals on Wheels and such. But we are also going to start visiting some veterans' homes, which we're really excited about. Mm-hmm. And we were at the Painted Turtle actually this past Saturday, and we're going to go a couple more times over the next couple of months, and that's super fun place to go.
That's exciting. And for folks that want to know more, learn more, is there a website? Is there Instagram?
Yes, RomeoRoadshow.com.
Okay.
And the Instagram is Romeo Roadshow.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Sanaa Pharayra, thank you so much for being our guest on the road.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
Absolutely. We've loved having you and learning about the Romeo Roadshow. And be sure to tune in next time for On the Road.